Hello, my name is Ivan Pruitt. I'm a technologist. For 30 years, I worked in the private sector to introduce compelling new technologies for information management systems. As a result of my experience, I discovered that public education in the state of California were in desperate need for new information systems to automate and transform their HR operations. I founded a company in 2001, built up an organization that was successful in designing the first online HR management system designed for K-12 school districts. During the 7 years that I managed and ran that company, I discovered that there were a lot of administrators that were hungry for innovation in information systems. But the system itself, the entire way in which school districts are governed, resisted any significant change the way they do business. As a result of my experience in that period of time, I decided that there was a substantial reason why public schools as we know them today cannot be transformed rapidly enough to accommodate the 21st century needs. And that is the reason why I'm writing the Phoenix event. For example, life on the planet Earth was a result of a series of catastrophic events. When the Jurassic Age, the age of the dinosaurs, ended with the collision of an asteroid into the planet, it wiped out a whole mass of species. Out of the ashes of that catastrophic event evolved new creatures. The mammalian age began, and we as humans are testimony to that event. Now, in natural history, we see these catastrophic events, but we also see them in human history. Some events are caused by nature, and others are caused by human activity. An example of that is the Dark Ages, when the Black Plague wiped out a good 40 to 50% of the population of Eastern and Western Europe. This event in itself, as horrific as it was, really led the way for the Reformation and the Renaissance. It was a way to weaken the authority of the Roman Catholic Church during the Dark Ages. And without that kind of catastrophic event, civilization may not have moved forward as soon as it did. Now, we live in another age where we are seeing catastrophic events of all kinds reshaping the global economic and social order. The one area that we're not seeing a lot of change in is education, public compulsory education. I believe that we're in the midst of a catastrophic collapse of the system that was designed in the 19th century, modified and adapted to the 20th century, and has outgrown its usefulness and effectiveness in the 21st century. The reason I write the book is a good question. I felt that there was a way that I saw things happening as a result of my many years of working in public school districts that wasn't being discussed in the national debate. Now, over the last 20 to 30 years of my life, I've seen the national debate be on the perimeter, on the outside of the public consciousness. It's mostly by policymakers, politicians, educators, and administrators. By and large, if the schools are getting kids in and getting them out, the public doesn't worry too much about it. But currently, we're in a major financial crisis that's putting a lot of stress on the way public education is funded. Now it is starting to affect thousands upon thousands, if not millions of children and their parents because schools are closing down. There's a shift, there's a titanic shift going on right now in the way that the public sees its current publicly financed compulsory education system. The literature just does not talk about alternatives outside of a few scholarly books on the subject. The Phoenix event addresses this issue. I'm looking at the reasons for the collapse that is happening and the outcomes that can come from the innovation that is occurring outside of the current system. It's a good news and bad news. The bad news is it's the system that we know it is collapsing. The good news, the system that we know today is collapsing because nothing really new can take its place until we acknowledge that it doesn't fit in the 21st century system. In the first half of the book, I look at how the concept of reform, and the new buzzword now is overhaul of the education system, is just not going to work. We're trying to fix something that is based upon fundamentals that are wrong in the 21st century. The whole idea that we segment learning into these grades in the subject matter is quickly becoming obsolete as a result of the internet age. And we have a stack of books for history that students have to buy and they have to go through when it takes only 10 seconds to look it up on the internet. So there's a disconnect with the tools that we've used in the 19th and 20th century not being needed in the 21st century. But there isn't a transition plan for this kind of activity. I will outline in the second half of the book the experimental technologies happening on the margin of education that are producing extraordinary results that could be a model of an alternative view of learning throughout all of our years in the United States and around the world. I'd like to tell you a little story of something that happened a couple of weeks ago. I was sitting in Barnes & Noble, one of my favorite places to go to work on my book. And I'd been working on it for a few hours and I was getting tired of thinking about this whole thing for so many hours. So I decided to take a break and walk around the bookstore and go to the magazine rack. And I intended to pick up something that was totally irrelevant to what I was writing about education. So I picked up a copy of Popular Science magazine. And I'm leafing through it, looking at all the great gadgets of the future, and all of a sudden there's this article about this school district, or this charter school in New York City that had been funded to use video technology, video game technology, for students to study their curriculum courses. Here I am trying to get away from the subject, and I find it in front of me. It was a very good article and very exciting that there is a lot of innovation happening, but it's on the margin. It will take decades to infiltrate the system to bring these new tools into the mass system. And I think that the average citizen is going to find, every time they turn on the cable news or watch the evening news, the topic of the collapse or the crisis in American education is going to be right in their face. The Phoenix event is designed to give a high-definition understanding of what's going on, how we got here, what is the framework for thinking about the future that is different from the past. And that's the reason I invite you to look into it.